Hello, everyone. This is Dino. I did some work on the Cave 1 some time ago, and I had to put a pause on it because I was getting a lot of questions on the Rebo series to add more questions and something else and something else. And I wanted to accommodate our friends on YouTube, so I couldn't do both. But now I'm almost done with the Rebo, and now I'm going to continue the CABE. So we are on CABE 1, and I'm on Chapter 4, personal liability insurance. Very, very important. For many students have told me that it's confusing. So Chapter 4, I've split into two parts. So I want to take my time and explain everything to the best of my ability, okay? Not to say that's going to be the best explanation, but you know what I'm saying, right? I'll try to do my best. So part 1. Oh, by the way, before we get started, if you haven't subscribed, that means I haven't won your subscription. So please, I'm trying my best to win your subscription. If you feel that these lectures are useful to you, please click on subscribe, but I will leave it to you. All right. So there are two laws every liability chapter will talk about. One is the criminal law, and the other one is the civil law. So for the exam, you have to know this criminal law. Criminal law is pretty serious. So the Criminal Code of Canada lists all the acts that qualify as crimes. For example, drinking and driving, hacking. So we're talking about people with the potential of going to jail, okay, if they get caught with a criminal offense. So the criminal codes and other legislation specify the duties an individual owes to society as a whole. So you can see we're talking about the whole society. It's not that you're being negligent and you did something wrong to somebody and they're looking for compensation. Okay, no, criminal law is actually looking for the guilt of the person. The civil laws, they usually look for the fault. They just look for compensation, but the criminal law, when someone is affected by a criminal negligence by somebody, and so the person who's been affected wants the other person to be punished. Okay, so it's pretty serious. Well, civil law, they deal with family matters, disputes between individuals or corporations brought before a court. The injured party is usually interested in monetary compensation. They don't want the other party to go to jail, unlike in criminal law. Okay, so examples would be individual rights, property rights, family relationships, separation, divorce, and things like that. Estates, disputes, estates and contracts, those kind of things. You can see a pretty mild compared to, drinking and driving or hacking into others' computers. Okay, so like I said before, the criminal law, they seek to determine guilt, and the civil law seek to determine fault. All right. When you look at the whole country, there are two systems of law, civil law, that we go through here in Canada. And they go back to the two major powers who came to Canada. One, of course, the British, they brought the common law, and the other one is the Civil Code of Quebec brought by the French. So to this day in Quebec, they're following the Civil Code of Quebec. So the Civil Code is a combination of the Napoleonic codes as well as the customs of Paris. So when the French moved to Canada and they all went to Quebec, the area, and the majority of the French people were in Quebec. And so they combined the customs of Paris they brought with them and the Napoleonic Code, and they put them together. I believe in 1994, somewhere around there, they came up with the Civil Code of Quebec. Now, the rest of the provinces and territories, they use common law. So the common law is brought by the British. Now, let's say a few words about the common law. In the year 1066, this is a very defining year in the British history. because they themselves were conquered. British common law evolved from decisions of English courts going back to the Norman conquest. I believe they came from Europe. And they were conquered in 1066, and they brought the common law to the British. So there are some of the attributes you want to remember about the common law. The common law is not all written in a book. Unlike the Civil Code of Quebec, they're all written in a book called Civil Code of Quebec, okay? But the common law, they're unwritten law based on precedents. So precedents. So what the precedent? Something that preceded, something that happened before, okay? So let me give you an example. When a case is brought to the court in a common law provinces such as Ontario, the justice system, they normally look to see if there's a similar incident happened in the past. A similar case was dealt with in the past, and if so, what was the verdict? So this is why if you're watching some TV shows involving, let's say, courtroom scenes, the lawyer will frequently tell the judge, Your Honor, in Jim versus Jones case, this in 1969, this was the verdict. So what the lawyer is trying to tell the judge is, we are dealing with the same situation here. Okay, we do have a precedent for this case. Now, why are we wasting our time? Because this was the same thing happened many years ago. It could be many decades ago. And so this was the verdict. So the common law says, if you're dealing with a similar situation today, and something happened before and there was a verdict already passed, the verdict cannot be different today. If it's going to be different, that means someone is trying to influence it. That's not acceptable to common law. Okay? So you can, I teach a course called C13 Liability. We deal with about 40, 45 different cases. Most of them, they went to the Supreme Court. So once a case is decided, let's say the case was not appealed, okay, so that the done deal decision, the common law provinces have all the provinces, even the common law countries, they have to follow that. That's how it works. So they are called precedents, okay? Something that preceded that happened before. So which are used in future cases of similar nature, okay, just like we explained. So the precedents can be overruled by new laws or statutes. Okay, so what do we mean by that? We just said that we look to the precedents, and so now we are saying overruled. Well, as a society evolves, we can't just always look back to what happened and then just, go with the decision. Things could be a little bit different today, and we need some strict laws. We need some codified laws, written down laws, not always looking back, because always looking back could be a little bit problematic. Let me give you an example. So let's say a bank was robbed in your town about a year ago, okay? And so the guy got 6 months in jail, okay? Now, the same bank was robbed yesterday. Now, what are you going to do? You're going to buy the new guy a ticket to Disneyland or something, for his bravery, or what are you going to do? Well, you're going to give him 6 months in jail probably, right? Because the same thing happened a year ago. But let's say the guy who went into the bank a year ago, he had an AK-47 in his hand. He took hostages. He threatened to kill the people. He was demanding a helicopter. And, he already hurt some people because they asked them to open the safe or whatever it is. But then the guy who went in yesterday, when the police showed up, he just surrendered. You see the problem there? So although the same thing happened, but the situation could be a little bit different. Okay, keep that in mind. So the precedents have some gray areas sometimes, but for the most part, yeah, big cases, we follow the previous rules. Okay. Now, why do we need statutes? What is statute? Statute is a law passed by the legislature, by the government. It's written down. I'll give you a quick example. The alcohol limit in your blood cannot be 0.08 milliliters. If it's more, your license is going to be suspended. There's no looking back. There's no looking to the precedents or something. No, we have a written down law. So when you have a written down law, like highway traffic laws, so many different, you speed limit, you cross over, you're going to get a ticket. No question, because it's a written down law. There's no negotiating. Okay. So that's why the precedent, sometimes it could be a little bit murky. Previous cases that happened, the situation could be a little bit different. That's why they can be overruled by new laws, which are pretty straightforward, written down, like 0.08. Whether the police measures your alcohol level in your blood, or your grandma, or your dog, it measures your blood alcohol concentration, it'll be the same. Okay, and your dog is going to give you a ticket. Okay, because it's written down statute law. Okay, and you're already saying, oh my God, this thing is, I mean, just bear with me. Okay, just bear with me. Just sit back and relax. Okay, you're going to be okay, I promise. Now, often referred to as case law, often referred what? Well, we put in a bullet point, so we are talking about the common law. The common law is often referred to a case law. Why is that? Because remember I said a minute ago that we look back to previous similar cases. That's why it's also known as the case law. So creating a precedent. Okay, what if we don't have a precedent? We are looking for a precedent, but there is nothing, none of this happened. Like, for example, I'll give you an example of, I'm sorry, I have to give you examples, okay? This is how I learned. I always gave a hard time to my lecturers when I was doing all these courses. Can you give me an example? Because I won't understand better. So I want to give you an example. So in Florida, this guy, he wants to marry a laptop. I'm not joking. Okay, the Floridian the Floridian court, the lower court, they threw it out. They laughed at him, and he appealed. He went to the appellate court, and then they said, "Hey, come on, are you kidding us? Okay, no, you cannot marry your laptop." So then he went to the Florida Supreme Court within the state, the highest court within the state, and they also laughed at him. And then now he's in the Supreme Court of the US, this case. He wants to marry his laptop. He says, I have a right to marry my laptop. So now I'm just watching this case very carefully because I have nothing else to do. Okay, this is what I do in my free time. I'm watching this case. Why I'm watching this? Because whatever let's say the judge rules, sure, give him the right to marry the laptop. And I don't know if the sale of the laptops is going to just go through the roof. And which laptop, like Apple, people would like to marry Apple or Dell, or what kind of laptop is more attractive to marry? I don't know. So, but this case is going to set a precedent. You were wondering where this guy is going with the story. I'm saying when there is no precedent, read that last bullet point. The judge will decide on a verdict based on sound and fair legal principles, which is going to be in this case, the guy wants to marry a laptop, and create a precedent. So once the judge rules in the Supreme Court, because that's the highest court of the land, okay, there's no more appeal, so that will stand. That will set a precedent. Whether the judge is going to say, no, you cannot marry laptop, yes, you can marry, that will set a precedent that all the other courts have to follow. It cannot be appealed. That's it. Also referred to as precedent-setting case law. So that's what I'm waiting with bated breath, that it will be a precedent-setting case law. Okay, the guy wants to marry the laptop. All right. A couple of words about Civil Code of Quebec. I already alluded to how the Customs of Paris and the Napoleon, Napoleon, my man, so he had his own code. He created his own code, great warrior and everything. Anyway, the British would say that the Battle of Waterloo was won on the playgrounds of Eton. Napoleon was defeated on the playgrounds of Eton in the Battle of Waterloo. Okay, to this day they say that. So anyway, Napoleon's code as well as the customs of Paris were brought to Quebec, and they were converted into Civil Code of Quebec in January 1st, 1994. Courts decide on a case as per the civil code that applies to a situation. So here what they do, they don't look into the previous similar cases. Okay, so when a case is brought to the court in Quebec, they open this big book called the Civil Code of Quebec. It's really huge, okay, big book. And every situation, whether it's a divorce, separation, land issue, criminal issue, whatever it is, they have an article dealing with that. So there will be sections, subsections, article numbers, all of that. It's a big book, okay? So they've got a recourse for every little thing and every big thing, okay, in the civil code. So you may ask me the question, okay, what if the same thing happened before? Why are they wasting their time? Yeah, that's true. So what they did, if you look at the fourth bullet point, however, in practice, courts do consider the interpretation of a similar case by a previous court. Others, it'll be a total waste of time, right? Because you can really follow. There are many huge cases that you can follow. I'll give you a quick example. There was a case where in the US, they decided that segregation was abolished. Okay. I mean, in schools, I think I know the Board of Education was sued. I'm trying to remember the name of the person actually. Jackson versus the Board of Education, something like that. Okay. I could be wrong. That is a huge case that went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said in that case, the verdict was no more segregation. Black and white kids, they will sit in the same class, not in the, the black kids have to sit in the back, and then the white kids will sit in the front. No, that was abolished. Oh, not only that, in some schools, they didn't accept. So blacks have to have their own school. Okay. So that segregation, it was abolished in that case. It's a very landmark case. Now, to this day, this happened in 1960s. Okay. To this day, there's no segregation in schools. Because let's say a teacher says, oh, you're an African American, so you have to sit in the back. He will be sued immediately based on that case that happened, the verdict that happened in the 1960s by the Supreme Court. Why? That's a precedent-setting case. So no way they can have the exercise segregation today because of that case, landmark case. So that means we look back. Okay. So in Quebec, they also started doing that. Otherwise, it's just a waste of time. You already have a landmark case passed. Why are we wasting our time? Are we going to reinvent the wheel? Okay. So over time, they borrowed from the common law. Okay. All right. So then for the exam, you also need to know the meaning of tort. So the word tort we use in the common law provinces, okay? It simply means a civil wrong, meaning that someone has done something wrong to another person. That's all. Someone was negligent and that person has done something wrong, okay? So tort is a civil wrong done to another in breach of a duty laid down by law. It is not a breach of contract. So let's say someone was driving 80 kilometers in a 40 zone and they hurt somebody. Okay, so it just, any kind of negligence leading to some damage to another person called a tort. So the tortfeasor, for a lack of a better name, is the person who committed the tort. The tortfeasor is the person who commits a wrong against an innocent party. That's all it is, okay? Now, what is this ABC rule all about? In a free country, or in any country, I should say, people have a right to bring a lawsuit against other people, saying that, hey, this person has done something wrong. Like the song goes, you did me wrong. So he did me wrong. So I want to take him to court. Okay. Now, I don't know why I keep laughing here because I'm looking outside. I can't help but laugh because just 2 days ago, it was like 25, 26 degrees. And today it's actually, the flurries are coming down. I cannot help but laugh, okay? The flurries are coming down. I can't believe this, okay? I try to go for a walk I couldn't. It was so freezing. I had to come back. Okay. So, I do apologize. I keep, laughing as looking at this, the weather, how it changed so dramatically. So coming back to the ABC rule here, okay? In a free country, so anybody can bring a lawsuit against anybody else. But the law says, okay, you have the full right to blame somebody that somebody has done something wrong to you, but can you prove it? You see, the burden of proof is on the person who is accusing someone else. If you don't put the burden on the person to prove that somebody did something wrong to that person, then everyone will blame someone else to get something back. It'll be so chaotic. Okay, keep that in mind. Now, that's a burden of proof. So when somebody brings another person to court, so the person who is suing the other person is called plaintiff, okay? You see the word there on the slide here. And the person who's being sued is called defendant. We are very familiar with this, okay? Defendant, plaintiff, okay? Every day we hear in the news, whatever it is, okay? Now, when the plaintiff brings a case against someone else, and there will be usually a preliminary hearing, okay? The initial hearing. Now, what is it all about? Because the judge wants to make sure that they're not going to be wasting a lot of time in, going through the due process. And then at the end, they feel that, oh my God, we shouldn't have even started this because there's no case. And over the decades and everything, they found out that, some of the cases are bogus and some of them had no merit. Okay, so they wasted their time. So what the judges in the jurisprudence, in the court system, they were doing for many decades now is ask some basic questions and to see whether there's a case that we can proceed with. So we don't waste the money of the people, the time of the people, the court system and everything, okay? Now, what are those questions? So those are the ABC questions. A stands for a duty of care exists. That means when somebody is blaming someone else, now we have to first ask whether the person being blamed, did he or she owed a duty to the person who now says that he didn't do that, and that's why the injury was caused. We have to establish that the poor defendant now being sued did owe a duty. He was obligated to do something. Okay, let's say you are going to attend a party or you're going to a movie or something, and you ask your neighbor, okay, could you please do some babysitting? We are going to a party. Okay, so you have a child and you wanted your neighbor to do some babysitting. Okay, but when he came home, the child was hurt. She fell down, and then she has sustained injury. Okay, and now its injury is very serious, and you want to sue the person, your neighbor, okay, because she was negligent. So with that example, was there a duty of care existed on the part of your neighbor? Yes. Okay, so now we have fulfilled a duty of care. Yes, that means she owed a duty to take care of your child when you are away. Okay, now the second question the judge is going to ask is whether that duty was breached, whether the person was supposed to look after your child breached the duty. It looks like that because the child was left alone probably, and then his child tried to get something, and then she climbed, and this person was not there, and she fell, and she has a very bad injury now. So that means the duty was breached. So we have fulfilled point number 2. Okay. The last one that the judge would like to see to proceed with the case is whether the injury sustained by your child was related to the breach. Is there a causal relationship? Because why we ask that? Sometimes people that try to create some case, okay, maybe they sustain some injury somewhere else, and then now they're blaming somebody else. to get some compensation. People can, they can fake injuries, they can make up a story. These things happen in the society. Don't be surprised. And that's why the court system, they want to know, there is no doubt that because of the breach that person committed, that means she left the house even for a few minutes, she went back to her house to do something. Okay. And that time your child, fell down because she was trying to climb to get a toy or something, and then she fell. So that means there's a causal relationship between the breach and the damage to your child. Okay, so I hope all this makes sense, because the judge is trying to make sure that we do have a case. If I can say that in one line, the judge wants to make sure that there's a case. So once the judge says, oh, okay, you were supposed to take care of the child, so you did have a duty to fulfill, and then you breached the duty because you left. Even for 10 minutes, you left, you went back to your house. Whatever happened, you had whatever it is, okay, but you did leave the child alone. And when you left, the child was perfectly okay. And then she tried to climb, and whatever happened, the TV fell down and along with her, and she's now badly hurt. So there's definitely a causal relationship between your breach and the injury. Now we have a case. Okay. So now you go back to the bullet points and let's read it, okay, with that little explanation. To establish a cause of action in negligence, that means for the plaintiff to sue another person, a plaintiff must establish several elements. See, now it's all making sense for you. So the traditional English approaches use the ABC rule. This rule states the plaintiff is entitled to succeed. Yes, like I said before, yeah, you can definitely bring a case against somebody and you are entitled to succeed, of course, if three elements are established to the satisfaction of the court. If you can prove this A, B, and C. See, now, the way I want to explain this to you is that you should be able to explain the ABC rule to others. Okay? So before you write your exam, try to explain the ABC rule to your spouse or to your child or to your colleague. I'm not joking. I always tell this to my colleague, my students. Try that. You try to explain the ABC rule, and some people are fascinated with these things, you see. And so it'll solidify your knowledge when you try to explain this to others, okay, rather than just listening to me. So try that. Okay, it's one of the tactics that I taught the students, and they really, especially the court cases. I say, discuss the court case with your family, with your friends, and tell them how a wooden wheel case went all the way to the Supreme Court. Okay, Buick versus McPherson. There's a famous case, and the car is a 1906 Buick. It was using, they had wooden wheels in that car, and the case went to the Supreme Court. It's a very fascinating case. So I tell my students, go and discuss that with your colleagues, with your friends, and during lunch. So you will remember this for the exam, right? But anyway, for here, we're not going to discuss any cases, okay? Now, let's put the ABC rule to the test. You have a good idea about the ABC now. Now, you see The Miracle on the Hudson. It's a very nice movie also by Clint Eastwood. So what happened was the Canadian geese, we should give them credit. Okay, they brought down this plane. I think it's somewhere here. Oh, here. Yeah, a flock of Canada geese. Actually, the plane struck a flock of Canada geese during its initial climb out, and then so lost engine power and ditched in the Hudson River. Okay, just near Midtown Manhattan. So this Sully, his name, so he's a very veteran pilot. So he just landed the plane, nobody died, but then there was a miscarriage, there was a heart attack, and so a lot of lawsuits. Now, did the airline have a duty of care to take these people from point A to point B? Yes, definitely. So we fulfilled a duty of care existed. What the breach of the duty occurred? Yes, because they didn't land in an airport. They landed in the river. I mean, they could have all been drowned. The plane could have exploded in the water. Okay, so it was so lucky that nobody died. Okay, there were other problems, heart attack and miscarriage and so on and so forth. But then nobody died. But it was a miracle. That's what's called the miracle on the Hudson, right? So this is a breach. They didn't take them to the destination. So the people who made the lawsuit, was there a causal relationship? Of course. It's because they landed in a river. People had so many problems there, and they were afraid for their lives. Some people thought that they were going to drown, and they went into a meltdown. Okay, heart attack, and all of those happened. So they sued the airline. Yes, so there was a causal relationship between what they felt and the breach. The breach is landing the plane in the river. Okay, so you can see how the ABC rule works in this situation. All right. The next one we're going to talk about the intentional tort. So in the previous slide, we saw tort means a civil wrong, but then intentional tort, it's pretty serious. Why? Because it's not somebody was negligent, somebody was planning, like premeditating to hurt somebody intentionally. It requires actual intent to invade the rights of the victim, or an intentional undertaking which would reasonably be expected to result in injury or damage. That means you were premeditating. You knew that you're going to do some damage to somebody. It's not covered by insurance. No, I mean, we shouldn't be covering those. Okay, if you cover that by insurance, then everybody's going to hurt somebody intentionally, and they'll say, "Oh, I'm going to make a claim." Okay, no, it'll be against the society. Okay. So unintentional torts, of course, ordinary negligence, we all are negligent at some point or the other. We have something called the concupiscence. Okay, don't ask me to spell it now. Concupiscence means we have the weakness. Okay, sometimes we do something and we say, oh my God, why did I do that? Why I drove 80 kilometers in a 40 zone? I shouldn't have done that. You say something about somebody on social media, something, and then you regret. And so all of those are negligence, right? You did it unintentionally. Okay. Now, the negligence is a huge topic. Okay. So you need to know the definition, because we are all negligent. So we need to know what exactly it is. And it's very simple to understand. I already mentioned to you about speeding. Okay. Your pet causing bodily injury. So we had a client, and we told the client that, look, we are canceling your policy for non-payment of premium, and you will receive a registered mail. And he put the blame on the bank and so on and so forth, whatever it is, but we didn't get the money, so we were able to cancel the policy. We had the right to do it, and we told them, just wait for we told them, you better look for another policy, because we are obligated to inform the customer. We give him 15 days notice, we registered mail. So he had an ostrich as a pet. And the ostrich was so well trained, and you can see in the picture, it chased the policeman. Okay. So the customer didn't want to get the registered letter. That means technically he didn't receive it. That means we can cancel it? No. I don't want to get into that conversation. Okay. It's totally different conversation. I don't want to digress here. Okay. Let's just concentrate on the ostrich here. Okay. So that would be, if this postman is hurt by the ostrich, looks at the ostrich can walk faster, run faster than this guy, and he's definitely taller than him, so he can hurt him. So that means he can sue the homeowner for negligence, right? For having this kind of ostrich. So in any case, let's go to the definition. Negligence is the omission to do something which a reasonable person would do, or just then they flip that, or doing something which a prudent and reasonable person would not do. It's like speeding 80 kilometers in 40 zone in a residential area. Hey, you're being negligent. In other words, you're not doing something a reasonable person would do. You're being very unreasonable. Okay, so that's negligence. All right. So here's another example on the QEW. I don't know wherever you're listening this from. This is called Queen Elizabeth Way here in Ontario. So this guy was caught by the police because he was driving with a mannequin. Okay, so the girl here is not a real girl. It's a mannequin. Okay, so this guy wanted to use the HOV lane, the high occupancy vehicle lane, illegally. And so he got a mannequin from one of his friends who was working in a store. Okay, and so they stole this and they went and bought lipstick and mascara and rouge and everything else. And they made her look good. And then the police, they noted that something is wrong with the girlfriend. The cruiser was by the side. And then especially the young guy said, hey, the girlfriend didn't say anything, a word. She didn't move for several minutes. We've been riding along with this guy and by the side, and there's something is wrong. And when he looked at the cops, he stepped on the gas pedal. He speeded up, big mistake. So the police caught up with him, and that day he was given 5 tickets. One, he was using the HOV lane illegally, and he was driving 55 kilometers because he stepped on the gas pedal to escape the police. Are you kidding me? You're escaping the police? And so the roadside suspension of his license, they took his car, okay, and he did not have proof of insurance. Imagine that. So he was driving with a suspended license. He did not pay child support pay. Oh my God. This guy is an absolute loser. And he did not stop for the police. So his life kind of turned upside down within a few minutes. So this is a negligence. Okay. This is, again, you have to know this. What is strict liability? So liability means that you have done something wrong to somebody and then you're being liable, legally or held liable. But what is the strict liability? So this is, they just took the liability one notch up. They raised the bar because what the person did, it is so dangerous. He's not only just liable for the damage, we're going to hold him strictly liable. That means the person who got affected, like the plaintiff, doesn't have to come and prove that this guy did something because what he did is so obvious. Like it was in the 6 o'clock news. So that means we're going to hold him strictly liable. So the law will presume that he did something wrong. And immediately he's going to, go to jail or, he's going to be taken into custody because what he did. So what you see in the picture that happened in Hollywood, there was a guy, he had this wild animals and he had been in many movies. Okay. I have to give him a lot of credit. Okay. So he will take this cubs, tiger and things like that, and also bear. So this bear you see in the picture, he took this bear when it was like a few months old, and then he brought up the bear. He has his own place in Hollywood in the hills, in Beverly Hills. So he has lots of different exotic animals. Okay. So one time they were shooting a commercial. So the guy you see is standing there in the picture, it's his cousin of this. Oh, Randy's place. Okay, that's his name of the guy who owned this several acres of land with a lot of wild animals. He was training them. Very capable guy. He came as a second, like in movies, in many movies. Okay, and he will come and he will fight with the bear and everything. The bear is his own bear. It's a trained one. So this is one of those. So what happened was they were doing a commercial. So the bear was supposed to stand up for the commercial and then kiss Steve. His name is Steve. This YouTube video, actually, the whole thing. And so what happened, you can see how they captured the picture. The bear stood up, and then rather than kissing him, it caught his throat, his neck, and just gave him a couple of shake like this. That's it. Steve was dead in a minute. He dropped dead. Of course, the police was called, and then they held Randy strictly liable. He was just taken into custody right away, and so it's a legal doctrine that says a defendant's intent doesn't matter in determining if they should be held accountable for a crime he committed. That means he couldn't have any reason. Oh, I was just doing a commercial and I wasn't, whatever. No, 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 no. What happened is so bad that you have to be held liable immediately. Okay. So keeping animals known to be dangerous or those presumed to be dangerous, you will be held strictly liable. Okay, you won't have much defense. You're going to go, into custody immediately. It's very bad. Okay. So there are three features common to liability policy. One of the major one is if you cause bodily injury or property damage to others, okay, they can sue you. That's the reason for the third party liability in your policy. So usually in the homeowners policy is 1 million, even the automobile policy, it's also 1 million. That's become pretty standard. So if you, through your negligence, if you caused either property damage or bodily injury to another person, okay, and it's so bad and they sue you, then your liability coverage will respond in your favor. Okay, that's number one. Also, coverage provided for third party claims only. This coverage on your policy, usually like a 1 million, it'll only be triggered, it'll only respond when a third party is making a claim against you. It's not about you, that your stuff is destroyed or something, that you got hurt. No. You have to deal with it separately. But you caused bodily injury or property damage to others, third party. Okay, so third party claims only. So who is a third party? A third party is the one who is not a party to the agreement. Usually, when you look at the insurance policy, there are two parties normally. The first party is the customer. The second party is the insurance company. That's it. But sometimes a third party will get involved. Like, for example, you're driving downtown, you have your coffee in your hand, and you're on the phone, and then you hit a pedestrian through your negligence. Now, the pedestrian can sue you. See, now he has become a party to the contract, the third party. You have to deal with him now. Okay, so the third one, the payment of damages required to compensate third parties for their losses. So this is the purpose of the liability coverage, is to compensate the third party for the damage that you caused or your customer caused. Okay, so those are the three things. And so, my friends, I'm going to stop here. So you can see that there are only a few slides, but I want to take my time to give you some examples and to put it in context. Okay. So I'm going to upload it now, and then I will see you for part 2, maybe tomorrow or maybe on the weekend. Okay. Thank you, everyone.